Howdy there, Isaac here. It's been a while since I've covered this story, and while it isn't super popular, I did have some pretty big plans for the Saiyan and Namek sagas, so I figured why not continue with it. Without further ado, let's see what may have happened if Tambourine, the demonic son of King Piccolo, survived. The story starts now. Tambourine flew out to confront Piccolo, and he'd catch up with the big green man without much trouble, especially since Piano was helping from up on the lookout. He'd watch as Gohan ran away from a dinosaur while his brother simply watched from above, something that angered the mutant. The demonic Namekian swooped in and knocked the dinosaur out with a single kick, before looking up at his brother with contempt.
"What's the big deal? Why didn't you come down here and help out the boy?"
Tambourine would go to make sure Gohan was fine, but him being big and green like Piccolo ended up scaring the boy even more.
"If he couldn't handle an opponent like that, then how do you think he'd fare against the Saiyans? Now leave him alone so he can complete his training."
Piccolo would launch a small blast at Tambourine, who easily deflected it. Now Tambourine, as far as we know, was born as an adult, and all his interactions with humans had been either with adults or children who were martial artists. But he knew one thing: human children were far more prone to death than Namekians.
"No, if we're going to defeat the Saiyans, then we'll need everyone to train on the lookout. That includes you and this boy."
Tambourine shot a beam of his own at Piccolo, who blocked it and rushed his elder brother. The two clashed in an intense grapple, staring each other in the eyes. Piccolo saw no use in training with the enemy, while Tambourine attempted to persuade him that they were all allies now. But ultimately, the two brothers knew they wouldn't see eye to eye, and like most men fighting, they'd prove they were right with their fists. Tambourine attempted to convince Piccolo that their father was the one person he shouldn't look up to, and Piccolo shouted that his elder brother abandoned the demon clan's way. In the end, Tambourine, who, yes, had less potential, but more time to train with a partner, would be able to beat Piccolo, though he was left beaten and battered as well. And with this victory, the three of them flew off to the lookout, although Piccolo was pretty annoyed at this. Speaking of which, the lookout was a complete mess. Bulma and Piano were fighting about who got to study Raditz' spaceship and Scouter. The Saiyan himself was confined to a wheelchair, but was still spouting nonsense, and the humans and Namekians were arguing. The humans were already working on a plan to train, while the demons hadn't bothered to make a move, with Garlic going as far as to mock the humans.
"Come on, what use is training if you all already have me? I'm immortal and plenty strong. I could have beat that Saiyan if it weren't for Goku's brat." "Ha, beat me? Even without the use of my legs, I could beat you,"
Raditz yelled out from his seat, earning the ire of Garlic. A fight nearly broke out between everyone then and there, only being stopped by Kami unleashing some of his godly aura and yelling at them.
"We cannot be fighting each other right now. Garlic, if you're really that confident in your abilities, how about you test them?"
Garlic sat up a little, thinking that Kami was challenging him, only for the Guardian to clarify that he was talking about the Phantom Saiyans. Garlic didn't believe a word about what Kami was saying, but decided to humor the Guardian, if not to show his superior abilities to everyone there. The Namekians were led towards the chamber and honestly would do about as well as the humans. After fighting the Phantom Saiyans, Garlic relented and agreed to train, and thus, as soon as Tambourine and company arrived, the real training began. At first, the Namekians easily outclassed most of the humans, but eventually they caught up, and the strongest of those two groups began to catch up to Piccolo and Tambourine. Krillin would form a rivalry with Spice, who attempted to take charge of their training regiments. Tien found a pretty decent sparring partner with Vinegar, who was a well-rounded fighter like him. Chaozu and Salt, despite the latter's abrasive personality, would bond slightly, due to their low battle power but unique abilities, both of them acting as support for their respective crews. As for Yamcha and Peppa, well, initially they had nothing in common, But during an intense sparring match where the Desert Bandit was about to be beaten, Peppa would mention that this was Yamcha's third strike. Now he was getting struck out. This sparked a conversation about baseball, and by the end of it, the two would begin planning a competitive baseball match between the Spice Boys and Z Fighters. While the two groups got chummy, Garlic and Piccolo showed little improvement in the friendship department. Garlic only trained with Spice and Vinegar, with Piccolo and Tambourine occasionally joining that mix due to their high battle powers. Piccolo himself only trained with Tambourine and Garlic, once again due to their high battle powers. I'm starting to see a resemblance between the two. Neither Garlic or Piccolo wished to get friendly with the humans, but Tien and Krillin would eventually earn their respect since they were soon approaching the power of Piccolo and Tambourine as well. As for Gohan, well, Piccolo wouldn't get much time alone with the Half Saiyan, especially since he was still a bit scared of him. However, the crew were convinced he should be trained after he, paralyzed Raditz. And so, the Krill Dog and Kami would work to train Gohan with some occasional sparring matches from Tambourine and Piccolo. In a sense, Gohan's growth correlated with the growth of the understanding between the three parties atop the lookout. As Gohan began to actually like fighting, due to the humans being far kinder and understanding of the Half Saiyan, everyone began sort of rooting for him. Whenever Gohan would hit a new milestone, both the humans and Spice Boys would cheer for him. While Tambourine never cheered, he did offer constructive criticism. Even Raditz, who initially only hurled insults at the group, soon began to praise Gohan for his high battle power, saying he was truly a powerful Saiyan warrior towards the ends of the year. Speaking of Raditz, he too would get some character development. See, he initially hated the Earth, and especially the group who was training in order to defeat his comrades. But after sitting there and stewing in anger for a few months, the Saiyan began to get bored, and decided to watch over the Earth from atop the lookout. In his mind, he was just learning about the Earth as a form of reconnaissance, know your enemy and all. But he soon got bored of humans and instead went to watch the beetles and birds build their nests. It was something that calmed Raditz, and he soon began to realize why these humans may actually like the Earth. He would never admit any of this, and he still kept up his show of bravado and Saiyan pride, but slowly Raditz began to be less and less hostile whenever Kami or the others interacted with him. As for Bulma and Piano, well, they had initially fought over who was to study the pod and scouter that Raditz had, but they eventually agreed upon a truce. Bulma and Piano would study both of these at Capsule Corp, and Piano would be allowed to bring back blueprints to the Demon Clan hideout. Luckily, due to Piano being there and being a little more cautious, Raditz's pod would never be destroyed. Speaking of the beetle lover, Bulma would call him in one day in order to ask him all about the Frieza Force's technology and how it worked.
Ha! What do you think I am? Some sort of scientist? No, I'm a Saiyan warrior. I have no idea how this stuff works. I only know how to operate it.
Well, maybe you don't know much about how it works, but if you could teach us to operate it properly, it'd really help us out. You're not a scientist, but in the Saiyan Space Technology Department, you're smarter than all of us, Bulma said. This shocked Raditz. For once, someone was generally asking for his help. Usually all anybody wanted from Raditz was a good laugh, and always at his expense. Well, are you going to just sit there, or are you going to explain this?
Oh yeah, well, hand me the remote.
And like that, Bulma and Raditz would spend a few days at Capsule Corp learning all about space pods. Piano, after getting the blueprints from the Saiyan pod, went back to the mercenary camp, which was now forming into a small town. He worked and tinkered within the workshop, having the smartest of the mercenaries help him to make a few prototype drones using the pod's propulsion system. Piano also broke down the alloy used to keep the pod from burning when entering the atmosphere, hoping he could use it to make armor that would either help resist or absorb ki and protect the wearer. Oh, and of course he'd help to gather the Dragon Balls when Goku was revived, utilizing his first set of working drones to aid in this effort. And thus a year passed, Goku was revived, and everyone gathered on the lookout. While they were ready to fight, there was still some awkward tension between them. Piccolo still partially wanted to rule the world, while Garlic was just as evil as ever, him only being there for, well, survival purposes. And while Tambourine had definitely earned everyone's trust, Krillin still feared the guy immensely, going as far as to say on the other side of the Z-Fighters when they lined up. Once Vegeta and Nappa entered the Earth's orbit, Piano and Bulma would attempt to calculate where they'd land, with the help of Kami as well. Using his drones and the mercenaries he had at his disposal, Piano evacuated the city that the Saiyans landed in, so that his brother could go all out and defeat this threat. Upon landing, both Nappa and Vegeta would be surprised to see the large cast of defenders there. About half the fighters could take on Nappa, though Vegeta was still far stronger than even the strongest of them, who was Garlic Jr. Nappa, seeing all these fighters, would eagerly plant his Cybermen, only for them to be easily beaten by the humans. Sorry folks, no Yamcha death here, he's just a little too powerful. After seeing that, Nappa would get excited and charge in, taking on Tien and Vinegar.
Make this quick, Nappa. I want to find these Dragon Balls as soon as possible. Maybe start with the Namek over there. Sure thing, Vegeta. I'll kill these Earthlings quick.
Nappa yelled out, charging a powerful blast, only to have Tien smack it away effortlessly. And this is when both Vegeta and Nappa used their scouters a second time, it reading Tien's power level as exactly 4,000. The duo were dumbfounded, but as Nappa began fighting seriously, Tien proved the reading true. While that went on, Garlic rushed down Vegeta, with Tambourine supporting him, while Piccolo charged up a special beam cannon. See, the Z-Fighters had come up with a strategy for these Saiyans, which basically boiled down to using their numbers advantage. And after clashing with Vegeta, Tambourine was happy they had that advantage, because this dude was way stronger than everyone there. Garlic was faring pretty well against Vegeta at first, however, once he landed a good hit on the Prince, Vegeta would retaliate with a brutal kick to his face. Before long, Vegeta was kicking and punching Garlic around the battlefield like a ping-pong ball, until finally using a double axe handle to shoot the Namekian into the ground.
Be careful, Nappa. These Earthlings can hide their battle powers. This green one hit me pretty hard. Some of them might even be able to kill you,
Vegeta yelled, half mocking his subordinate.
What? That's impossible, Vegeta. I won't let some puny Earthling defeat a Saiyan elite like me.
He began charging up the same attack he'd used to kill Piccolo in the anime, launching it right at Tien. The Cyclops and Vinegar would barely catch his attack before racing forward, pushing Nappa's beam right back into his mouth, adding some ki of their own to finish him. The attack would hit, blowing the old Saiyan into a nearby skyscraper, causing it to collapse. Meanwhile, Vegeta had managed to decimate Tambourine, throwing him past the others. This put fear into the others, but they all banded together to launch an all-out assault on Vegeta. Krillin and Tien would charge up a destructive disc and tri-beam, while the others held off the Saiyan. This, combined with Vegeta being hurt by Garlic and Tambourine, would cause the Saiyan to take these fighters much more seriously. Unfortunately for them. Spice would rush in, only for his arm to be broken by a single kick by Vegeta, who went on to launch a couple powerful ki blasts at Salt, Peppa, Yamcha, and Chaozu, ending them then and there. Luckily, this is when Vegeta began to dial it back, leaving the remaining fighters simply writhing on the ground while he gloated, only for a Kienzan and Tri-Beam to be launched to him. The Prince barely dodged this, getting a small scratch on his cheek, but then he flew in and delivered 2 devastating gut punches to the last remaining fighters. It looked as if all hope had been lost. Vegeta was charging up a ki blast to finish off everyone there. That was until Garlic showed back up. Garlic, newly regenerated, rushed in and began delivering several punches to Vegeta's back. These actually hurting the Prince since he was off guard. Spice and Vinegar cheered as their boss wailed on Vegeta. That was until the Prince recovered and caught the Namekian's hand.
I thought I offed you,
a seething Vegeta said.
You did.
Garlic savagely shot a beam of energy from his mouth, but the prince simply grabbed the key and shoved it right back into Garlic's mouth, finishing him once more.
Immortality, huh? What a waste. It fit much better in the hands of an elite Saiyan warrior.
Vegeta then turned around to see Tien, Tambourine, Spice, and Krillin standing back up, them all squaring up to fight. Tambourine said he might have something to finish this guy off, looking at his comrades for confirmation. The other three fighters nodded, with Tien using the Four Witches technique to grow an additional set of arms. The four would charge in, with Vegeta taunting them due to his prior victory. The prince sent Spice flying with a roundhouse kick before using a double axe handle to shoot Krillin right into the ground. However, as the last two were throwing hands with him, Vegeta noticed that Tambourine's hand began to glow with ki, and whenever it hit him, it was hot to the touch. The prince eventually got rid of Tien, but this gave Tambourine just enough time to charge up his Maden Geki, and he thrust his hand forward with all the speed he could muster. Vegeta was able to dodge this, Tambourine's hand rushing right past his head, leaving another tiny cut on the prince's face. However, learning from his failure with Raditz, Tambourine sliced downward into Vegeta's shoulder, cutting pretty deep into it before being kicked away by the prince.
Ah, damn you, Well, I don't know what you are, but you'll die all the same,
Vegeta yelled, shooting a ki blast at Tambourine, causing him to fall to the ground with a huge burn mark on his chest. Vegeta, knowing Nappa was out of the fight and that his arm was of no use anymore, decided his best bet was to simply blow up the earth and leave. Yeah, it's a bit cowardly, but it's better than dying.
You'll regret injuring me. Now say goodbye to your little planet.
Vegeta began powering up a one-handed Gallic gun, aiming it straight towards the earth, specifically towards Tambourine. The others next to the demon began freaking out, but Tambourine was completely calm. I mean, come on, couldn't they feel it? The attack his brother was charging? Right as Vegeta launched his Gallic gun, Piccolo would jump in and shoot his special beam cannon. The two beams clashed for a few seconds, but Vegeta's began falling back towards the earth. The special beam cannon is powerful and meant to cut through beams, but the power difference between these two is too big. That is, until Garlic shows back up. The Namekian, seeing this clash and knowing that his Earth would be destroyed by this Saiyan, decided to charge up the most powerful Garlic bomb he could muster. He'd fly directly underneath Vegeta and launch a blast at his back, causing Vegeta to momentarily lose focus. This momentary loss of concentration, along with Tambourine, Tien, and Spice helping Piccolo, meant that the special beam cannon sliced right through the Gallic gun. Vegeta, having only a split second to move, would attempt to dodge, though the beam still burrowed through his shoulder. Vegeta, realizing both his arms were taken out and that he wouldn't be able to defend himself, yelled out in both pain and defeat. Piccolo and Garlic surrounded Vegeta, both readying attacks to kill the Saiyan, but this is around the time Goku would arrive. Tambourine and Goku, being the most paragon of the group, would advocate for Vegeta to be spared, with Piccolo and Tien bringing up the fact that the Saiyan killed their friends, two of which couldn't be revived due to being revived already. This, however, gives the prince an idea.
I did kill your friends, but I know of another planet with Dragon Balls, and those might be able to revive them.
Piccolo grabbed Vegeta's collar.
And why should we trust you? You don't need to, Namekian. You can kill me here and now, but Planet Namek does have Dragon Balls, or so I've heard. Namekian? Why do all you Saiyans keep calling me that? What is a Namekian anyways? What? You're a Namekian, you fool. The race of slug people that hail from planet Namek. What is it with Earth and forgetting your heritage?
Vegeta said, looking towards Goku. Piccolo would let go of Vegeta, deciding to hear him out. Garlic would attempt to kill this obvious threat towards his rule of planet Earth, however he'd be stopped by Spice and Vinegar, who desperately wanted to revive Salt and Peppa. With that, what was left of the Z-Fighters would capture Nappa, who was in critical condition, but alive, as well as Vegeta. And thus, the end of the Saiyan Saga and start of the Namek Saga began. But that is a story for another time. If you guys enjoyed this, I'd appreciate it if you special beam that like button, or maybe even garlic bomb that subscribe button. But even if you don't, thank you for getting this far in the video, and just joining me on this journey. When I started the series, I had about 100 less subscribers than I do now, so thank you for everyone who was here back then, and who's since joined. With that said, I hope you guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.